Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. This week brought two new minis to Warcraft Rumble. Both are Cenarion minis, there's Treant and then there's Eclipse. And in this video I'm going to take a look at both minis, showcase their strengths and weaknesses, and showcase the best talents for each. First of all, we have Treant, so the seeds of the Surging Sapling Squad. Summon one additional Treant per gold spent, or actually just summon one Treant per gold spent. So as many gold as you spend, as many Treants you are going to get. And Treants, well, you can have a lot of them. They're armored, they have 200 health, so okay, that sounds quite okay. But they're also vulnerable, which means that they die to like chain lightning or any sort of elemental damage, just all of them. They also don't really have much DPS. They hit pretty hard at 90 damage, but with 2-second attack speed, that means that their DPS is actually not that great. However, because their initial hit is pretty big, then that means that if you can gang up on something with a large number of treants, then they can actually just hit that thing down pretty fast. So here we have a bunch of treants ganging up on an Ancient of War, and look at the damage they put out. That initial hit is quite impressive, even though the sustained DPS is fairly low. Unfortunately, the Treants pay a high price for their vulnerability because elemental damage, and they just drop like flies. Another curious aspect of Treants as a squad mini is that you actually can't split them. They will all go to the same direction when they are played. Make matters worse for Treants, they don't really have any great talents either. Composting on death heal nearby allied minis, yeah, there's a minor heal when Treants die, but typically it just doesn't help too much. Uproot on death, root the target for 3 seconds. Yeah, sure, but Treants are in melee range anyway, so at least as long as you have Treants, then the target is going to keep killing those Treants anyway. So that doesn't really help, the target is already focused on Treants. And then it's just rooted and fights against the Treants, but once the Treants die, the target is free anyway, so yeah. And then Propagation, summon 2 extra Treants for every 3 gold spent on deploy. I consider Propagation to be the strongest talent, because Propagation actually does something, because you get some of those minis out there. Because thanks to the power of Propagation, I can have even more Treants that are going to run to their death. But I mean, that is a fairly impressive looking party. And they do kill those Treants pretty fast. Now, if only there was only physical damage against these, and they would be kind of nice when supported by Cenarios, for example, but then there's some elemental damage, and yeah, so long my Treants. So Treants are not very strong. I still hope to find some niche use for them, which is possible if there's a map where there's a lot of physical damage. I mean, it would have to be almost solely physical damage, and preferably single target damage. And I think Treants might be able to get something done in that kind of circumstance, but that just doesn't exist in the game at the moment. The other new mini that we got is Eclipse. Eclipse is a Cenarion spell, and it's a little bit stronger. Total Duality. Rotate between moon magic and solar power, calling down damaging beams from the heavens. So this rotates between Moonfire and Sunfire, and Moonfire is always the first form. And this changes forms just like Earth and Moon. Every time you play a Cenarion mini, this changes forms, including itself. So if this is the only Cenarion mini in your deck, then it starts as Moonfire, and when you cast Moonfire, the next time you play it, it's going to be Sunfire, and then it's going to be Moonfire again, and so on. Or if you have other Cenarion minis, then you can actually just play them in between, and then you might be able to do like only Sunfire, for example, or only Moonfire, depending on what you want. This spell is fairly cheap. Sunfire deals some decent damage, Moonfire doesn't do much, so that's kind of the problem with the spell. Eclipse has 3 talents: Solar Flare, Sunfire also burns enemies; Umbral Force, Moonfire also stuns enemies for 1 second; and Celestial Focus. Spells gain 2 levels if played immediately after Sunfire or Moonfire. As you can see, only one of these talents affects both of its forms, and Umbral Force, Moonfire stuns enemies, that's actually pretty bad. I don't think there's any good use for that one. Solar Flare, Sunfire also burns enemies. That means that Sunfire actually deals a whole lot of damage. So I could totally see some kind of use where you cycle into Sunfire forms and then you just keep burning enemies with that, because then it's very, very cost effective. Lots of damage. But overall, the most useful talent is Celestial Focus. Spells gain 2 levels if played immediately after Sunfire or Moonfire, and that mainly goes into some kind of a Jaina deck. Because both forms of the spell work with Jaina, then you can play Jaina. Jaina has clear casting, so it's going to be a little bit cheaper, and then you can blast something with that. And then you have this Execute that now has a lot of levels, and look at that. That's just that Execute power that you can drop on Chicken or whatever you want to drop it on. So Jaina, Sunfire, Moonfire, Execute, that sort of cycle. Drop Jaina, drop the clear casted Sunfire, drop an Execute. Just look at that. That's a lot of damage. So that seems to be clearly the strongest talent, although Sunfire with Burn can be a lot of damage. So I can definitely see a world in which that also is going to see use. And the third one, it seems pretty useless for this one. So overall, we still did not quite get what we needed for the Cenarion family. Cenarion family still does not have any cycle minis. And search mini, spending all of your gold. And spending all of your gold also on such a vulnerable mini. It's just going to die every single time unless there's going to be a very specific map where that can truly shine. Physical damage, preferably single target, and boom, they can really go. Eclipse, much more flexible, but Eclipse mostly goes together with Jaina. So, yeah, even that doesn't really help out the Cenarion family's issues. But those are the new minis, and those are the best talents for the new minis. And I hope you have some good times with them anyway, and I'm sure you will, at least with Eclipse. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.